It's Mejia Made.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Danny Mejia, aka Mejia Made. Today, I'm gonna be showing y'all how to make a J. Cole type of soul sample. Let's get into it. All right, y'all, so that was the sample right there. Very spacious, but still melodic. So let's go ahead and start breaking down this sample. So the first thing, which is really just the foundation of the whole sample, obviously is the piano. So I'm gonna go ahead and solo that. Let's listen to what it sounds like. So for this piano, I originally laid out the idea in my mini keyboard. I was just messing around on the keys. I wanted to come up with different ideas, and this is what I landed with. So let's head into the piano roll and see what the MIDI looks like. So the VST I used for this piano is a Nor by Contact. I used the basic pure preset. So what I ended up doing for this sample, once I had laid out my piano, I knew that I wanted to add extra effects to the piano. So the first plugin I added is Choral by Contact. The next plugin I added is this J37 plugin by Waves. I wanted to keep adding to that vintage type of feel. Next plugin I added is a compressor. I just really wanted to take a little bit more control of those transients from the piano. Next up, what I did is add this parametric EQ and deducted a lot of that low end. And I wanted to widen up the piano a little bit, so I added this wider plugin. So before the effects, this is what the piano originally sounded like. And after. So as y'all can tell, those effects really added a lot of texture to the piano, which is exactly what I was going for. For this sample, I remember just going through a bunch of different presets, putting on a bunch of different effects, taking them out, just kind of seeing what worked and meshed well together. I ended up consolidating it, which we can see over here in this track 1. And I added just one more plugin, which is this M Auto Pitch plugin. Let's listen to what it sounds like. What I ended up doing is adding even more width to it, and I really only moved this knob only +1. I'm gonna increase it just so y'all could kind of hear more of the effect of what it's doing. So the other setting I adjusted is I pitched down the Foreman shift, as we can see over here, to -6. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it back up to 0, and let's listen to what that sounds like. And then back down to -6, sounds like this. The next thing I did is add this parametric EQ. It's a pretty drastic cut on both the low end and the top end. So after I added all those effects to the piano, really building a strong foundation to build the sample on, I wanted to add another element. So what I ended up doing is adding this sound over here. So now we're in the piano roll. Let's listen to what the sound originally sounded like. So after I consolidated that synth, what I ended up doing is adding more effects to it. The first thing I added is this reverb plugin over here. These are the settings for it. The next thing I did is deduct a lot of that low end all the way up until 465 hertz. And the next thing I added is H delay by Waves. These are the settings for it. I ended up compressing the sound just to really make that reverb stand out. I ended up adding this Pancake 2 plugin over here to make it pan left and right. So without all the effects, this is what the sound originally sounded like. And with the effects turned on, so with the piano and the synth, this is what they both currently sound like. So in order to bring back some of that low end, what I ended up doing is using another piano, but this time I use less effects on it to retain a lot more of that low end and bring the fullness back to the first piano. So this is what it sounds like. So the VST I use for this piano is again Nor by Kontakt, but this time I used a different preset. I used the extra body preset. And then I added these effects right over here. So the first one, I have this parametric EQ. Next thing I added is again this auto pitch plugin over here. But as y'all can tell, I left the width at 0 because that first piano already provided a lot of that width. But what I ended up doing is still reducing the formant down to -6. So with the effects turned on, this is what the piano sounds like. So with both pianos together, they both sound like this. So the next thing I did, I added this synth over here for the second part of the section of the sample. I wanted to make the second section just a little bit more interesting, just give it an extra layer. Let's listen to what it sounds like. So the VST I use for this sound is from Diva. I use the HS Steven Plinker preset. What I ended up doing is adding this S1 stereo imager by Waves. After I did that, I consolidated it. And then I added these two plugins over here. The first one is Fruity Chorus. These are the settings for it. And the next thing I did is deduct some of that low end all the way up until 418 hertz. And then as y'all can tell, I routed it into this synth bus over here along with that first initial piano, and it's going through the same effects again, which is the +1 width and the -6 formant shift. So after I laid out my piano, layered it, and added that synth on top of it, I still felt it was missing something, and I tried to mess around with just different sounds and see what else I could add to it. But what I ended up doing is going in the splice, and I found this vocal sample over here. Let's listen to what it sounds like. So for this sound, what I ended up doing is I ended up pitching up the sample. I pitched it plus 1000 cents. So the first effect I added is this parametric EQ. I took away a lot of that low and top end. Then what I ended up doing, I wanted to give it that extra type of vintage, just lo-fi feel. So I ended up adding this cassette plugin. Next up, I added this delay plugin over here called Replica. And then I wanted to widen up that vocal just a little bit more. So what I ended up doing is adding this little micro shift plugin by Soundtoys. And then there were some resonances added to the vocal after I had added all those plugins. So I just ended up ducking those out. So with all the effects turned off, this is what the vocal sounds like. And with the effects turned on, and just really quickly, I want to show you guys what the vocal originally sounded like straight out of Splice.
I don't even know if you can handle it. All I know is you can have it. I don't even know if you can handle it. All I know is you can have it.
So I'm going to just go ahead and play the finished sample one more time. So really quickly, you guys, what is one of your favorite samples that have been flipped? Let me know in the comment section down below. All right, y'all, and that was it for this week's sample breakdown. If y'all gained any type of insight from this video, please leave a comment. Please subscribe. It's really going to help the channel grow. For those of you that are new, I put out 4 videos a month where I do 2 beat breakdowns, a sample breakdown just like I did today, and I also do a sample flip challenge. So I appreciate y'all for subscribing, watching my videos. I'll catch y'all next week where I do a beat breakdown video. Stay blessed.